Welcome to the next normal. Growing up, I loved playing games, board games, video games, drinking games. And as a young boy, I was a bit of a crybaby. Whenever I lost a game, my dad used to say, "It's not the hand you're dealt, but how you play the cards." And I was like, "Dad, are you kidding me, man? Of course it's the cards." With time, you realize the only thing in your control is how you react to what happens. From the universe's point of view, events themselves are neutral. They are neither good nor bad. It's how we respond, how we rise to the challenge. That is what gives meaning to the experience. That is how we create the next normal. We've seen 10 years of acceleration in the last 10 months. Look at some of the biggest sectors of the economy: education, healthcare, finance, Bitcoin, IT. I have one client who undertook a digital transformation project that would normally take 18 months, and they went from start to finish in 18 days. Why? Because they had no other choice. At some point, you start to realize that we're all just players in a game without a finish line. So I think it's fair to say that we're all being forced to adapt. And the question is, how well are you adapting as an organization, as a team, as an individual? Now, hopefully, we're adapting a little better than this woman, right? To build and reimagine the future, we must adopt an experimental mindset, a growth mindset. Instead of thinking your abilities are carved in stone, you believe in developing your talents and skills, and that challenges are the best way to do it. That you can improve and get better, not despite the adversity you face, but because of it. That's the next normal. This is what it's going to take to build and reimagine the future. So the question is, what's the way forward? Well, I think it's helpful to know the game in which you're playing. If you have at least two players, you have a game. And according to game theory, there are two kinds of games. Finite games are the games that we play to win. Think football or rugby or even chess. There's a clear beginning and a clear end. The rules are known, they are fixed. It's clear who the players and competitors are. You know who you're up against. And at the end of the game, you declare a winner and a loser and you move on. That's a finite game. Then there's an infinite game. An infinite game has known and unknown players. You don't always know who you're up against. The rules are always changing and you can play however you want, more or less. The main objective of the infinite game is to perpetuate the game, to stay in the game as long as possible. And if you think about it, we are players in infinite games every day of our lives. Let me give you a few examples. Relationships are an infinite game. Marriage is an infinite game. There's no such thing as winning in marriage. If you think you're going to be number one in marriage, I have news for you. It's not going to go very well. Education is an infinite game. Healthcare is an infinite game. There's no such thing as winning your health. And perhaps the most important infinite game, life on this planet. In the best-selling book Sapiens, author Yuval Harari talks about the cognitive revolution that empowered our species, Homo sapiens, with language and stories and myths and this ability to cooperate on a mass scale. It was this cognitive revolution that empowered us to subjugate every other species on this planet. Now, that was 70,000 years ago, but life on this planet preceded us by billions of years. There's also no such thing as winning business. Nobody's declared the winner of business. But if you listen to the words of far, far too many leaders, it's as if they don't understand the game they're playing. They talk about being number one, being the best, or beating their competition. They obsess over rankings and growth and benchmarks. They talk about winning and losing as if there's an endpoint. But based on what metrics? What time frame? And where's the finish line? There is no finish line. In fact, if the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that no one even knows where the finish line is. The problem is when we play with a finite mindset in a game that has no finish line, there's some very predictable and consistent outcomes. There's a decline of trust, a decline of cooperation, and a decline of innovation. Eventually, it is the demise of the organization or team itself because you run out of the will or the resources to stay in the game. Now, if business is an infinite game, then what does it take to play? How do we lead with an infinite mindset so that you can stay in the game and outlast your competition? Well, as it turns out, there's a pattern of 5 elements, 5 practices that you have to master. Let's go over them. First, you have to advance a just cause. Those who have an infinite mindset, instead of showing up to win, they show up to advance a just cause, something bigger than themselves, a vision of the future so compelling, so just that people would willingly sacrifice to be there. Now, that could mean turning down a better paying job or working late hours. Pre-pandemic, this could have meant frequent business trips or not seeing your family. Today, it's going out of your way for someone, or volunteering, or covering for a colleague, or raising your hand to be on a project or a task force, even though you don't have to. Though we may not always like doing these things, we do them anyway because we feel we are part of something bigger than ourselves. So my question to you is, what are the just causes with which you identify? What are the social causes to which you feel drawn to contribute? Who are the leaders that inspire you? What books, blogs, magazines do you love to read? What's the world that you imagine? Let's go to the second practice. You have to build trusting teams. These are the teams in which people feel safe to admit and forgive mistakes. These are the teams where people, they ask for help and accept it when it's offered. These are the teams where you have absolute confidence that your colleagues and your boss will have your back. With low trust, people show up every single day hiding mistakes, pretending to know what they're doing even when they don't, refusing to ask for help or even accept it when it's offered. Why? Because people don't feel safe, and I don't mean physical safety. Low trust slows everything and everyone down. Eventually, stress goes up, cooperation goes down, and the center cannot hold. So my question, is there someone with whom you'd like to build greater trust? Have you accidentally eroded trust with anyone in 2020? What actions can you take to build trust with the people around you? Practice number 3. You have to acknowledge and study your worthy rivals. We have to stop thinking about other players as competitors that we need to beat and start thinking of them as rivals. And some of those rivals are worthy of comparison, hence the name worthy rivals. We don't have to like them. We don't have to agree with them, but we do have to respect them because they are better at some things than we are. And their strengths reveal to us our own weaknesses. And what happens when our weaknesses are revealed? Well, we can work on them. We can improve. Infinite-minded teams and individuals are able to acknowledge those who are better than they are so they can learn more about themselves. The only true competitor in the infinite game is yourself. The goal is to be a better person or a stronger developer this year than you were last year, to have a more resilient team, more innovative products, and better services this year than you did last year. I had a supervisor who always used to say, this was early in my career, he used to say, I hope you have a better boss next year, and I hope that person is me. You see, in the infinite game, sometimes you're going to be ahead and sometimes you're going to be behind, but there is no joy in comparison. So my question, can you identify an individual or even an organization that you admire or that frustrates you? What is it about them that you admire? That might give you an indication of what you need to work on. Use the worthy rival not as a competitor, but as a resource. Let's move to the fourth practice. You must prepare for existential flexibility, or what we call X-Flex, which means the willingness and the foresight to make a profound strategic shift if and when you find a better way to advance your just cause, even if that means a short-term loss. Because the rules are always changing, you have to leave yourself room to pivot and adjust. To be an infinite player means you have a fixed cause, but a flexible playbook. Finally, you must demonstrate the courage to lead. Why courage? Because all of the things that we're talking about are really, really difficult. They're hard. What we've been through this past year, what you've been through, and what you are aiming to achieve in 2021 to build and reimagine the future, that takes courage. It's much easier to run a company quarterly or annually just looking at the numbers. It's extremely hard to make decisions with a just cause in mind. There's so much pressure to make finite, short-term decisions to please owners and shareholders at everyone else's expense. It's so much simpler to hire and fire and rehire and refire, restructure and reorg, and neglect building a culture built on trust, customer centricity, and collaboration. And that takes courage. And so I would ask, what is one thing that you commit to doing that requires courage? Perhaps it's an unpopular choice. And while it's the right thing to do, and you know it's the right thing to do, it may be hard to do. And so ask yourself, who can you lean on? Who are you going to call when you want to give up? In closing, I just want to say the gap that we're trying to close is really leadership, small L leadership. I'm not talking about being president of a company. On Team Simon Sinek, we bet on and develop leaders who are willing to give first and go first, because that's all it takes to lead, the willingness to go first. And if you are a member of a team or part of a group, you will have the opportunity to lead. And leaders are the ones who are willing to sacrifice so that others may gain. There's a difference between management and leadership. Managers manage the known, leaders manage the unknown. Nobody wakes up in the morning, or at least no one that I know wakes up in the morning and says, "Ooh, I can't wait to be managed. Please manage me. I want to be managed today." No, that's absurd. Leadership is the awesome responsibility to help those around us rise. Now, I cannot predict what things are going to look like a year from now. But I do know one thing, that we can build and reimagine any future so long as we know that we don't have to do it alone. And so all of this begs a very simple question. What does it mean to live an infinite life? We all know that our lives are finite, but life, it's infinite. The opportunity to make a difference, to build and reimagine the future, that's infinite. So we have a choice. We can live our life by finite rules, or we can live our life by infinite rules. Choosing to live by finite rules means, how can I make more money? How can I get promoted more quickly? How can I gain more power than everyone else? And you know what happens on your deathbed when you have more money, a higher position, and more power than everyone else? You don't win life. Not to be morbid, but you just die. Choosing to live by infinite rules is entirely different. Now you're asking, what contribution am I making to my team, my company, to my family, to my country? What contribution am I making to the people around me that make them better? That's what it means to live an infinite life. We can all name someone in our life that we are who we are today because of that person, because they believed in you, they trusted you, they saw something in you that you didn't even see yourself, and they pushed you and they sacrificed for you. That's what it means to live an infinite life. If you are a parent, you know exactly what I mean. The joy that you get from seeing your children rise is far more powerful and rewarding than seeing yourself rise. That's what it means to live an infinite life. If there is a thread that runs through all of our work on Team Simon, it is this: we are social animals. We are biologically programmed to come together to achieve things that we could never achieve by ourselves. Alone, we're pretty useless. So we don't play the infinite game just so that we can wake up and win a different finite game. We play the infinite game. We adopt the infinite mindset because it's better, because it lasts, because the act of helping those around us live richer, more connected, more meaningful lives, well, that isn't just an infinite game. It's the only game worth playing. Thank you so much. Obrigado.